Okay, Mr. Casa, we are now live. The meeting is yours.
Thank you very much, Ms. Fakish.
Everyone to tonight's monthly Facilities and Operations Committee meeting for the month of October. I appreciate you joining us tonight. Sorry, we're a couple minutes late as we're going through some logistics in the last meeting. And with that, we will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we'll move on to approval of the minutes. Ms. Fakish, look, I got my camera on this time, so I remembered. Approval of the minutes from September 27th, 2021. Do we have a second or a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Are there any comments or questions?
Nope.
All right, hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. None opposed. And the motion passes. I'll use this opportunity to mention that committee member Ms. Ramich is at another event, actually, for the school district, and will just be joining us a little bit later as she wraps up those duties as a board member elsewhere. Okay, with that, we'll move on to items recommended for work session or action meeting. Mr. Schneider.
Thank you, Mr. Casa. Good evening. Good evening, committee and citizens. This evening, our first item is a Crawford Stadium change order to the general contractor, Grace Incorporated. This is the final change order for the entire project, closing out all of outstanding items. Mr. Slaughter, could you provide information regarding this change order?
Certainly. Good evening, everyone, ladies and gentlemen, and citizens. Thank you for having me. This final change order was negotiated with the general contractor, Grace Industries, and included several adds, including some unsuitable soil at the athletics driveway, some additional signage, door closures, and coat hooks that were requested by Talmadge Township for ADA compliance during their final inspection. There was also a downspout change order for reworking one of the athletic building downspouts due to existing utilities, and an infill of a ground face block due to some duct configuration that was needed because of conflicts in the ceiling and the mechanical area. To offset that, we got deduct change orders for narrowing the paved path behind the visitors bleachers. Also, we reduced the amount of wall padding under the press box columns, as discussed with the architect, the owner, and myself. And we also deleted the scope of work to apply sealant to the ground face block. Now, why we did that is important because there was a lot of comments in the installation instructions, which said that a typically applied sealer to that kind of block tends to be blotchy and shady. The ground face block has a much higher PSI content than standard block. So rather than risk the fact that we would have to remove it and reinstall it to avoid blotchiness, we decided to just delete it from the scope of work. All these items combined together resulted in an add cost of $2,600 to their contract. The unsuitable soils at 135 yards was almost $8,000 itself. So I thought this $2,600 ask was very fair based on the scopes of work.
Thanks, Lord. Please report the change order report, please. So here's the change order report. All the change orders industries. With this final change order for their change order versus 2% of the correct amount.
Excuse me. Is it just me, or I'm having trouble hearing Mr. Schneider? It's breaking up.
Yeah, you're cutting out a little bit.
Mr. Schneider, it might be helpful to kill your camera. That might
kill down on the bandwidth a little bit.
Okay.
No, I don't think that worked.
No.
Is it possible we could do a dial-in, Mr. Schneider, from the Zoom options?
I was going to say the same thing, Tom. Try dialing in.
Just when you get into the fun part here.
Dr. Dietrich, do you think it's worth tabling this for now, doing the student presentation and then coming back?
The same thought. Let's do the Enact presentation and we'll get Tom up and running. But I think, John, you can go ahead and do the intros on that one and then we'll get Tom eventually here.
Great audible, thank you.
So Mr. Collier, if you don't mind.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having us. I am John Collier. I'm a high school teacher. I teach science, and I also am the faculty advisor of the Enact Club, which is our environmental club. I have with us today Ashley Lau and Sadia Rahat, and they're going to kind of give you some updates. I know we spoke, I think, back in April about some of the things we've been working on, and we just wanted to give you an update on some of the things that Enact has been up to since then, and that we're going to be doing this upcoming year. So I think we're ready to go down a bit. And I think we can actually go to the third slide now. Oh, up one. Sorry. Thank you.
Yep, hi. Last year, a few other members of Enact and I came to speak about what kind of projects our club does within our school and community. And today we're just going to be focusing on what we have already accomplished this year and what we have in store for the future.
So starting out, for our second meeting, we actually had our very own Ashley come and help us with taking in the wood chips that we usually have. She called the Hatfield Township to get those wood chips, and we worked with our Enact team members to lay down those wood chips on our nature path, to which we haven't been able to do because of COVID, which is really nice because it's looking a lot better now.
And then recently we hosted a shoe drive in partnership with Key Club and Sanctuary Village in Philadelphia, in which we collected over 400 pairs of shoes. And these shoes were kept out of landfills, and instead of they were sent to stimulate the economies of developing countries, and all while raising money to support those experiencing homelessness in Philadelphia.
We also are collecting plastic bags, and that is going to be being sent at Weiss to be weighed, and we're trying to collect up to 500 pounds. And if we get 500 pounds in those 6 months, Trex is going to give us a recycled bench, all made from recycled plastic. And we've already gotten 100 pounds in the first month, so we're right on track. And very excited to keep it going.
Yep, so we also have the Electronics Recycling Day coming up, which is going to be on November 13th. And in 2019, we had one. We collected over 38,000 pounds of electronics. Unfortunately, last year we had to cancel because of COVID, but we are super excited to have it again this year, and we're excited to see what we collect.
We actually started our own, I guess you could say, our own version of the Night Crier, which is we called the Green Gazette. So we have our newsletter purely on the environment being sent out. Not yet, but we plan on doing so in about a month. We started this newsletter about a year ago, and we plan on definitely keeping this up.
So looking forward, we would like to continue to focus on education and outreach. This includes energy conservation, recycling, and food waste in the cafeteria. Generally, we want to consider sustainability and energy efficient options for the school district.
We also kept in mind the idea of any renovations that would occur at our high school or in general in the district. We talked to our very own Mr. Snyder about the renovations and what we could do to lower the costs, as well as our global footprint, which would help our community and our school as a whole, which included doing things like solar panels, having green space, sustainable building materials, and we're still very, very excited and would be extremely excited to help you guys with any ideas of trying to build and add on renovations that are both sustainable and economically helpful.
Thanks so much for having us today and taking the time to listen to our thoughts on sustainability at North Penn. We are all looking forward to coming to future meetings and having a say in what's going on at North Penn.
Thank you. Thank you for advising Mr. Collier. And yeah, we've said this before. I know it's been tougher through pandemic. You always have a microphone here at the committee, and you could reach out to us as well or to your student representatives if there's anything that we need to deal with between committee meetings as well. Your input's really valuable. You know, the one item that I'm really glad was brought up you know, was where your nature path is right now, and what that might mean with the new footprint of potential renovations. I think highlighting that, you know, shows the importance of having our students involved in this process. And we do have a master plan that's being developed, actually is under contract with Schrader. And I really want to make sure Mr. Snyder and the administration you know, make sure that we include all of our student groups, but in particular, with the points that you've raised, I think your voice is going to be very important as this process, the planning process about options for the high school moves forward. So thank you. Any other members? I see Ms. Wesley, you have a hand up.
Hi, first, thank you to this environmental group. I mean, I think it's relevant. I think it's important. And I hope that we continue to maintain it and support it. I also echo what Mr. Costa said regarding student input, in particular to the environmental benefits. And as you said, our own Mr. Snyder. So that sounded very inclusive, and I really appreciate that. And Mr. Linsky as well, because Mr. Linsky is also an integral part of maintaining our environmental compliance and footprint. So collectively, that's a great team you got going there. My question is real specific to the bins to collect the plastic bags. Where are they? Because I certainly have plastic bags that I'd like to contribute to keep you guys on track. And I'd like to let other people know in my neighborhood where they are so they can participate.
Great question. So right now I have a one in my room at the high school, but probably the easiest thing for most community members is to just take them directly to Weiss right across from the high school. Their assistant manager has been so helpful, and they're just what they get. They just take them in and weigh them. So anything you donate to them goes directly toward our total weight.
All right, so just to repeat, right now, there's just one in your classroom, and Weiss is the designated drop-off, right?
Exactly. And if anyone has any suggestions for putting them elsewhere in the community, it's easy for me to get more boxes. We just haven't really rolled out more places to put them.
Well, I think getting that recycled bench would be awesome in 6 months. So
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have any other questions? Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. Casa. I know the raised hand's hard to see on the color of my wall paint, but I wanted to echo your sentiments as well as far as having the students involved in the future planning. I think that would be great. And my question is specifically towards the electronics recycling day. on November 13th. Is there, are there any fees for, like disposing of monitors, say, or is it just whatever electronic device that you have, you can bring?
So most items are free. Anything with a cathode ray tube, so that would be the older computer monitors, does have a fee. There's a couple other miscellaneous items that have fees that I don't have off the top of my head, but I'm happy to share the flyer that we have that has pretty detailed information on the fees.
That would be great. Thank you.
Absolutely. And just in case that was the last question, I wanted to definitely say thank you everyone for having us. And in particular this year, we have some very strong student leadership in the club. And I've really not seen students take such an awesome lead over the last year. And a lot of them were underclassmen last year, so we still have them this year. So really, if there's anything you think needs to be done within the district in regards to sustainability, you've got a great set of student leaders that are ready to help.
That's wonderful, and thank you. And I would say to those student leaders who are going to speak next, hold us accountable. Let us know. We do not see and hear everything, and you probably have better ideas while we're at it too. So let's go with Anna and then Eric, please.
Hi. So I'm Anna. I'm one of the student representatives. So one of the things I've been meaning to bring to some people's attention, a lot of people I've talked to have noticed the water faucets in most of the bathrooms at the district. They're the push handle kinds. And we've all noticed that, when you go into the bathroom, there's almost always one that's stuck and it's running. It's been wasting a lot of water. So we were wondering if there's anyone we could speak to get that fixed. And it seems like you guys definitely would have the resources to help take care of that. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. But
absolutely, I'll defer to the administration yeah, if there's an answer, if they have a specific contact.
I mean, speaking from experience, Mr. Hilbert is the head of facilities at the high school. And so you can direct things to me and I can talk to him, or, if you have a teacher that wants to drop him a line. He is absolutely responsive and is on top of that sort of thing. If he's aware of it, he just doesn't always know. So anything that he can fix, he will fix. So if you let me or him know, we'll take care of it.
Any other points, Anna?
Yeah, one of the things people have mentioned is it might also be a more sustainable solution, like a permanent fix, replacing the faucets with electronic automatic faucets. They're more sustainable. They're also, since we're technically in the middle of a pandemic, it would cut down on a lot of the germ exposure and whatnot. But I just wanted to bring that to people's attention. So thank you.
Thank you. Eric.
Yeah, I thought it was very interesting that you guys are running that plastic bag drive, and I hadn't heard about it before. I think it would be cool if you guys could publicize that more to the student body. I'm on the Student Government Association. I think we could help out with that, and I think it would be cool if you guys enact to get a little segment on the morning show, as a bunch of clubs do. You guys could talk about that. You could talk about the other stuff that you've talked about sort of today, and I think there would be a lot of students who'd be interested in that. And it'd be nice if there could be like a drop-off center in the main lobby or something. It'd be a very accessible place for people.
Absolutely. We'd love to.
Great. Thank you. Do you have any other questions or comments from the committee? Once again, thank you all very much. You always have a place here at Facilities and Operations, and we thank you for what you're doing to make North Penn and the world at large a better place. So let's move on to the next item. Dr. Dietrich, I'll defer to you with the order here while we're working with Mr. Schneider.
Yeah, Tom, I see you're on. Do you have audio or where are you?
No.
Looks like we're not up yet with him. All right. We're gonna need to see, Bill, can you handle, or Dan, you want to handle any of these other items? We'll take the ones you guys feel comfortable handling.
Yeah. Bill, do you want to finish up the change order?
Hold on real quick. I just noticed Mr. Schneider unmuted there. Tom, try.
All right, Bill, you want to finish that
Sure.
change order, or would you rather go to letter B under information?
Let's finish up, Dan, if you want to bring up the change order report that Tom was trying to present there. So I think to Tom's explanation, if you would scroll down a little bit, I believe we are at 2.59% in change orders overall. As you see to the left over here, the different categories of change orders lining up with that 2.59%. So that's the overall and final change order for the Crawford Stadium project, and our overall change order percentage based on the original contract. Any questions on that change order?
It's Kathy. Are
Yes.
are we now considered at final completion then?
So we have a conditional certificate of occupancy, which was issued by the township. We are ready. We just replaced the trees this past weekend. I'm going to walk the site one more time and then submit the application to the township for final completion. We're still closing out, receiving documents from some of the contractors, O&M manuals, warranty paperwork, and that kind of thing. So I anticipate within the next 30 days, we'll have that completely closed out and done, 100%.
Okay. All right, so we're at final completion. What about the punch list items, Mr. Slaughter?
There are still a few outstanding punch list items. We are holding 2.5% on just on every contractor. So until those items are finally completed, I would say they're probably 85% complete on the punch list items. So I'm meeting the mechanical contractor tomorrow to wrap up some of his items.
Okay, awesome.
And that should wrap up everything.
Great project. Thank you. Oh, can I ask one more question, Mr. Casa?
Please.
And I don't know if this is the time. So there were questions prior about the height of the railings for the bleachers. And I didn't want to speak out of turn, but I wanted to confirm that the height of the railings is a code, a regulation or a code that we're required to have them be maintained at a certain height. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yes.
Okay. And we would not be able to be issued final occupancy certification without meeting these particular codes, correct?
That would be correct. Yeah.
So let me ask another question. Do we have any wiggle in that at all?
No, that's a mandatory 42-inch fall protection height. So
there were concerns about individuals that may be in a wheelchair, that the railing height may impede their view, but at the end of the day, we'll have to do something else because that is a requirement that we need to meet. You need to meet.
That is correct. That's why they go with the single tube and chain link for the visual impedance. That minimizes that, and I get that. That is a in the line of sight for some folks, but it is a mandatory requirement. And you know, my own backyard deck railing impedes my view of the back pasture. So unfortunately, that's something we have to live with.
No, that's not unfortunate. That's great that we have maintained all the safety requirements to make sure that we've put together a really safe project overall. So thank you, and thank you to your team.
Eric.
Yeah, so Mr. Slaughter, do you believe that the current railing would impede the view of someone in a wheelchair? And if so, is there like an alternate place for them to sit accessible to them where they would be able to have a better view?
So unfortunately, the way that seating is right now, the railings are all the same height. I would say that impedance in your view would be limited to just, you know, based upon your torso height and your wheelchair height, and it would only impede for certain areas. So if you were looking at an area that's immediately in front of you, you would be down underneath of it, or further away, you would be up above it. The only other option would be to go down to the track, but again, there's a railing there as well. While it's not the 42-inch height, it's slightly lower, but could still offer the same visual aspect even at that height.
Any other questions, Eric? Or comments?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Mr. Casa, I think we have Mr. Schneider now. He did also phone in, so we're going to give this a shot. Tom, you want to just try it and see? Can we hear you? Can you hear us, Tom? Okay. I think what we should do is, Bill, you want to give those updates and the information on Knapp and Crawford. And Tom, don't hesitate just to throw in your 2 cents somewhere, and then we'll know that we have you. Meanwhile, we'll keep on trying, okay?
Tom, can you try *6 on Zoom? Sometimes they mute you and you don't know it. Just try *6 and see if that works.
All right, Bill, let's do those updates, and we're gonna get Tom on here one way or another.
All right. Yeah, we'll work through our technical difficulties. Well, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, again for having me. I'm going to go through the monthly update. Of course, with the stages of completion that we're at Crawford, there's not a lot to update there, but I'll do my best to bring you up to speed on that. Next slide, Mr. Linsky. Thank you. So some of the notable activities that occurred at the Knapp Elementary School in the past month, we completed the installation and boiler startup in the boiler room. So the boilers are now online and we are supplying heat to the building as needed. In addition, we've installed the new building automation system on your server. We still do not have it in the hands of the mechanics yet, and that's something that we're working on for this month. We're continuing piping in the corridors for the current phase 3B and the upcoming phase 4, so we can get out of the corridors altogether. We are starting to install ceiling grid in the corridors that the overhead work is complete. So areas such as phase 2, phase 5, and phase 6 are all finally getting ceiling grid in, and their final items in the ceiling, and then we're going to follow that up with the floor tile as well. We began the glazed block in the kitchen serving area, the clear story wall framing in phase 3B, seating and landscaping of partially completed areas. So the areas around the sidewalks and the areas around the bus entrance have been raked and seeded. Ceramic tile installation, the bathrooms in phase 3B, the fixture installation in bathrooms phase 5A and 6, the window installation in the clear story, which is in the LGI and cafeteria area. We completed the wood deck, roofing, poured the remaining slabs, framed the walls, interior walls, and completed the storefront installation in phase 3. We still need to complete the vestibule entry in 3A. That's being done over the upcoming holidays on November 2nd and 4th. We're continuing completing the faculty dining area, so that can be turned over prior to starting phase 4. We opened the cross hallway at corridor C109. Quarry tile installation in the kitchen area is underway. We've moved the construction fence back to open up the field area and installed the kitchen hood. At the stadium, we continue to grow in and routine maintenance of the turf areas and completed some owner training on the electrical and plumbing side, and we continue to receive closeout documentation. Next slide, Mr. Linsky. Activities planned for the next period at the Knapp Elementary School. As in every update, we continue to review, anticipate, and try to avoid potential conflicts and late deliveries, not only in phase 3, but also in upcoming phase 4. We continue to pursue early delivery of phase 5 and any portion of phase 3B that we can turn over early. Also, we are planning an early start on phase 4 from the original construction schedule. Again, the site work can't be completed until school is dismissed for the summertime. So that site work and the removal of the mods is always going to be in the summer of 22. Critical activities were planned for Knapp. We're going to complete the mechanical area concrete pad, wrap up the boiler room work 100%, bring the new building automation system online for mechanical controls, wrap up some of the piping in the corridors and upcoming phase 4. We're going to finish the CMU and glazed masonry block in the serving area and kitchen and custodial area. We're going to complete this clear story exterior sheathing, complete the quarry tile installation in the kitchen areas, complete the installation of the bathrooms in phase 5A and 6 and 3B. The LGI and cafeteria MEP rough-ins will be completed. The site sign foundation in CMU is to be started. The final cleaning and turnover of phase 5A and B has taken place. So we're looking to wrap up a couple outstanding items this week and turn that over to the school. We removed the temporary columns in phase 3. That's already been completed. Gypsum walls started today in phase 3B, and windows and glazing is just about wrapped up in 3A and 3B. So all the windows that we have should be installed within the next couple weeks. We're going to complete that interior vestibule as we stated November 2nd and 4th. Complete 100% the faculty dining area for turnover, begin demolition in phase 4A, and can receive and install kitchen equipment as it becomes available. We also plan on turning over portions of phase 3 as they become available. We've instructed the contractors that the media center is to be first, the LGI second, and the cafeteria area third, even if the kitchen is not available. Next slide, Mr. Linsky. Activities planned for the Crawford Stadium. We're going to continue the pursuit of the final certificate of occupancy, complete the grow-in and seeding and fall fertilization at Crawford Stadium as part of the turf grass installation, and the deteriorated trees that were replaced by November 15th were done this past Saturday. So that's a little bit ahead of the final window. And judging from the rain that's coming in the next 2 weeks, it should be perfect for them. And receive the final certificate of occupancy. So this would be the that'll be the last update next month that we talk about Crawford Stadium. Next slide, please. So the Knapp schedule, late items in the non-critical path. We received a recovery schedule. We reviewed and returned with comments on the logic and predecessors to the general contractor. We submitted more input from the prime contractors, and our ongoing schedule is expected later this week. That was issued today back to the prime contractors for comment on a few items. The current schedule not being approved and received has not impacted the current progress of the project. We still have late deliveries, including the walk-in boxes, the kitchen combi ovens, the food slicer, library shelving, and the circulation furniture in the media center area as items that have been identified that will be late and impacting the turnover of those areas. Critical path areas, we did set a critical path dry-in date that was met with enough done so as not to delay any of the prime contractors. With that being done, we're installing spiral duct work. All the electrical rough-ins are being completed. So that was a critical path item. We still have concerns over phase 3B completion on the current timeline, and the recovery schedule was incomplete. Critical path input was put on late delivery and drove out the schedule. That is part of the reason why we rejected that schedule. We feel that, just because we're getting some items late does not mean that we can't open up these areas with missing a few pieces of equipment. We've talked to facilities department. Some of the used equipment that we moved out can be moved back in order to facilitate the use of these areas until we receive the permanent equipment. Some accelerated items. Phase 5 was delivered by the end of October. We're looking forward to starting phase 4A early, and that looks like it's going to be November 8th after the school is able to move into phase 5A and 5B. So we'll be starting November 8th in phase 4A. The overall building renovation is still looking to finish ahead of its original schedule. The exterior paving and parking lot still needs to be completed in the summer of 22. There's nothing we can do to accelerate that based on the occupancy, the teacher parking, and the student activity with daily drop-off in those areas. Next slide, please.
Mr. Slaughter, can you hear me now?
I can now, yes.
Okay, good. I think I might be back then. You can continue. I just wanted to check.
Okay, great. So some of the newly identified critical issues, the GC has submitted these change order requests for consideration. Flagpole upgrade, that's due to the increased height, wall thickness, and an internal lanyard from the original flagpole that was shown on the drawings. We received a credit to utilize thin set mortar in lieu of a wet bed for the quarry tile in the kitchen. There were some cast stone sills that were not identified in the contract documents at the administrative windows, so these were added. We received a credit to remove wood blocking from the roof per the roof manufacturer. And there were 2 additional cricket areas that were added per Architects ASI 026 to improve roof drainage. Also 1 for overtime that we discussed last time. That one's going to be applied to the unit cost allowances. The combination of change order requests 41, 44, 46, 47, and 48 should be a wash at a $0 change order or very close to that. The site curbing issue that we talked about last summer is for next summer is still out there, and we will continue to update on late equipment deliveries as noted, and supply chain issues continue to impact this project. A lot of the big stuff we already have on site has been good, but there all are small items that we're needing here and there that we're finding are not readily available on the shelves. For instance, we needed a coupling for a piece of pipe outside that they went to the supply house and we had to order. So something that you normally would get in 1 day now has a 3 to 4 day lead time to get. It's not really impacting anything. It's just something that's hanging out there. Next slide, please. Newly identified critical issues. Crawford Stadium, we were waiting on that 1 negotiated change order. That's been submitted for approval. That should wrap up any kind of critical issue for Crawford Stadium. Some of the warnings and safety warnings that have occurred with a lot of activity, as you can imagine, at Knapp going on right now. We have more and more issues to go along with more and more staff being on site. So we had 2 electrical safety issues around GFIs that were addressed. We had 1 roof edge warning that was addressed after the fact that was issued. Material storage issues, job site cleanliness, that was 1 warning which was addressed. We had 2 slip, strips, and fall hazards, which we were using pallets as a walkway to get to the trailers due to the water. That's been addressed. 2 mask warnings, 3 PPE warnings, which were all for the same violation for glasses, hearing protection, and a respirator. We had 2 ladder and scaffold warnings, which were addressed post this writing, and 1 falling object warning, which was addressed. There were no issues at Crawford Stadium and no accidents to report at Crawford. Off to the pictures then, Mr. Linsky, if you would. So the first pictures we're going to show you are the last concrete pour that started before dawn in phase 3B. So you can see the pump truck set into the cafeteria from the outside of the building and us pouring the slab in the cafeteria area. So that's the concrete slab looking into the kitchen from the outside. Next slide, please. This is our look inside the cafeteria. This is some of the glazed CMU that we're showing you. Window installations in the wood deck in the high area above the cafeteria. So this is looking from the cafeteria into the serving line. Then the picture to the right is looking from the cafeteria into the new serving area and the dishwash area from the cafeteria. Next slide, please. This is the new media center looking out into the LGI. There'll be 2 doorways and 3 windows from that area. That is currently being drywalled right now, that wall. The picture to the right is the cafeteria and LGI area looking into the media center, specifically at the high roof area. Next slide, please. These are some roof pictures showing the new vestibule and the high vestibule area of the wood deck, looking from phase 4 and the faculty dining area over into the new administration area. In addition, the picture to the right is the media center roof. So this is looking from the backside of the media center all the way across the new cafeteria and LGI area and into the new vestibule area. Next slide, please. This is the kitchen hood in the cooking area. You can see the quarry tile floor installation going in. So this hood is going to be the area where the new combi ovens and any the tilt skillet will go. The picture to the right is from the kitchen looking into the serving area. This is and the dishwashing area. So this is where all that equipment will be set where the kids can come and get their food. Next slide, please. This is next slide is going to be the spiral duct installation just being started. That whole half of the cafeteria, that duct work has been installed already. They are now working on the LGI area. You can see on the picture to the right, the folding partition that's going to go into place. That track and soffit is now built. So once that's drywalled and the finishes are done, we'll have them out to install that fabric folding wall that goes in that place. Next slide, please. What you're looking at, one more down, please, Mr. Linsky. There you go. So what, up one, my apologies. So what you're looking at here is in phase 5, there's a split reading room that has a small folding partition. That is that wall there that you're looking at between the 2 reading rooms. And to the right is the new glass partitions in the small group instructional areas. This one happens to be in phase 5B. The other one is currently being used by the librarian as her staging area. So we aren't able to put any of the floor finishes in there, but this LGI now has the floor in and looking very nice. Next slide, please. This is looking at the boys' gang bathroom in phase 5A and the girls' gang bathroom in phase 6. These are currently have all the fixtures installed, all the partitions are installed, the rest of the ceilings are dropped, and now they are now being final cleaned. Next slide, please. There's some photo shots here of some of the classrooms in phase 5B and some of the classrooms in phase 5A. In the 5B picture, you can see the Florazzo tile that's being staged for the corridor installation. That installation is now completed. Next slide, please. Some classroom casework on one of the classrooms in phase 5A. And there's that corridor flooring we were talking about, the Florazzo being installed in phase 5 with the along with the ceilings, grid, and tile dropping. Next slide, please. These are the new walkways at Valley Brook Drive. You can see they've been raked and seeded. And to the right, you can see these are the new walks and grading at the S-turn in Knapp Road. Unfortunately, someone missed the turn coming northbound on Knapp Road and destroyed some of the new curbing and one of the new stormwater inlets. No damage to the sidewalk, but we'll have to do some patching there from an errant driver. And that is the last slide that I have for any of this presentation. Does anyone have questions?
Ms. Wesley, and then and Anna then next.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Costa. Mr. Slaughter, the slide that showed the safety warnings, I'm going to say simply, I love the slide. I'm glad that we added that particular information from the start of both Crawford and Knapp projects. And while the numbers have increased, so has, as you said, the activity, the different disciplines that are there, and the focus on getting the job done. And we both know, and other folks know, Mr. Snyder included, that they're only warnings. And should there have ever been an accident, which is possible, but not probable with the attention to detail, that would stop our work. And so I appreciate all the warnings that have been given, and despite all the activity and all the disciplines working around each other, near each other, there's still this attention to call out where something is not specifically correct regarding a safety requirement. So I really appreciate it. And I think it is proven to be something that we want to continue to include in our updates for all future projects. So thanks.
Yes, we have great assistance in having an OSIP inspector on site weekly. And most of these things are corrected the same day as he identifies them by the contractors. If it's not corrected the same day, it is followed up within a week. I've never seen anything go longer than a week. And once things are corrected, we send pictures to the OSIP inspector as a sign that we've completed that task, and he can take it off his report so that it doesn't follow report to report.
And I think that's great, because we all know, we know that if there were to be an accident, there would be a work stoppage. Disciplines would have to be focused on getting that report done, mitigating, determining the root cause and such. And we've not had that issue. So thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions, Ms. Wesley? Go ahead, Anna.
Hi. So 2 questions real quick. So I'm not sure what it stands for. I'm not sure if everyone at home knows what it stands for. What do you mean when you say an LGI?
So that would be a large group instructional area. And as part of 21st century education, actually, the instructional areas go back, decades. So the way the Knapp open space is conceived is there's a cafeteria area and there's a large group instructional area, and those walls can be closed so they can be used together or be used separately. The small group instructional areas are more breakout areas for individual classrooms to use, and that is in that 3rd and 4th grade wings area of Knapp. So those can be used by any classroom. So it's just different ways to use the same space in different manners, and use it as assembly areas.
Okay, great. And one other question. So it was referenced a lot, but I didn't quite catch a date. What is the final completion date for the interior of the school? Or the estimated one?
The estimated completion date for the interior of the school is looking like May 1st right
Okay.
now of 2022.
Great, thank you.
And
Certainly.
Anna, you were, I believe, a student at Knapp. And so
Yes.
you'll recognize, I think, how important having those LGI spaces are, especially in upper grades where you were doing more group work or projects. A lot of times Knapp students were using the hallway and sitting on the ground in the hallway right next to where all of the stringed instruments were set up for kids who are in orchestra. Now there are actual dedicated spots where kids could be, be taken out to do a project, or maybe it's for an intervention. So just having more spaces to be able to move and have that workflow is so important. And some of those photos that I think were shown of the new lunchroom, you can already see a big difference just by raising the ceiling, right? It just gives it a much bigger and nicer kind of open area feel, where the old Knapp lunchroom felt a little too enclosed and a little too cramped. So just having that space to be able to move and gather, I think is one of the real benefits of the project.
Yeah, I would agree, especially coming from that school. I remember, it's so crowded in some places, in the library, you had to squeeze past with everyone in their book bags, but I'm definitely really excited to see the new building and everything like that, especially since it was so old when I was there. So keep up the great work.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you
Bill.
for those questions. Go ahead.
Can you hear me, Mr. Casa? Okay, good. Would you like
Are
to
we going to go
jump
back?
Would you like to
that's
jump
what I was
back?
gonna. Let's close out that great slide on the change order, and then we can get back to voting on that. And there was one other item on the NAC, and then we'll follow right with B, the natural gas basis contract. So,
Mr. Linsky, could you share that change order report again, please? I know Mr. Slaughter explained it very well. I'll just go over it real quick.
I think the last thing I remember was 2.5%.
Yeah, I just got to pull it up.
Okay.
1 second, please. Board docs. Change order. You're looking at the report?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, back to my share screen. Bear with me. Okay. There we go.
As Bill mentioned, and what I'll just reiterate is Grace's final contract amount is 2.5% in total change orders on the entire project. We are planning to close out the remaining Brandon Stanton, electrician, mechanical, and Guy M. Cooper, the plumber. At this point, the total change order amount for the entire project is 2.59%. So there was a contingency planned of $348,000, and there's a remaining $137,000 of contingency left in the project. So this change order would be posted in the next action meeting in November. Mr. Casa, do you want to see?
Thank you, Mr. Schneider. Yeah, you answered exactly the question we always ask at this slide. So any other questions we have or comments from the committee before we put this to vote for change order? All right, seeing none. Do we have a motion for this change order? Second. Okay. All those in favor, please say to move this forward to action meeting for a full board vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, it's unanimous. The change order moves forward. Thank you, Mr. Schneider.
Yes, the next item for recommended for a work session is a natural gas basis contract. This contract, with the recent increase in cost of natural gas over the last month, our natural gas broker contacted us about extending the contract into the future. We'll go to the next slide, Mr. Linsky. So just to reiterate, there's enough items that make up the full natural gas pricing. One is this, which is a financial term, and it's with the physical transportation of natural gas from a truck. And that trading hub is based in NYMEX, but with the amount of gas in Pennsylvania, our basis prices are typically lower because we're only transporting natural gas locally within the state. Then there's the commodity, the actual natural gas that is burnt into in the boilers. There's PICO charges for the distribution of natural gas to the business. Go to the next slide, Mr. So we're approached by that's good. We're approached by about extending the gas base track, and this is a commodity. We had to make a decision at the time, and we're going to request that there's a retroactive approval on the natural gas basis. Our current basis contract is 52.7 cents a decatherm, and the new contract is 17.5 a decatherm for the year 2020. Next slide. This is a history of the natural gas commodity prices. As of December 8th, the commodity was up to almost $5.80 a decatherm. Today it closed at about $6.15. So we are definitely in an increasing market at this time. Next slide, please. You can see the increasing costs over the past year of the natural gas prices, and hence the reason why the basis is so affordable at this point. Next slide, please. We had the our current supplier UGI for 7.5 cents decatherm for 12 contract and a 35 cents decatherm per month to select a 17.5 cent per decatherm for 2 months. So extend contract to 2025, and it's very careful. We just the market, the natural gas becomes affordable again. Next slide, please. So included in the basis contract is our total natural gas, which we will purchase when market conditions are favorable, and it includes 100% full plant. So whatever need we get, there are no ways to burn less. The only time that there would be a change to the contract is if we add another building or another load. So this is a very good price, and we look forward to the committee recommending it move to the board action. Next slide.
Any questions or comments from the committee? Mr. Schneider, will this be a topic that you can condense for the board so we can, I know we'll give them a heads up with this PowerPoint and that this is reviewed ahead of time. Maybe we could have a one-pager executive summary. Just this is not an area that most people swim in often, and want to make sure that our colleagues are up to speed on this before full vote.
Absolutely, Mr. Casa. Yes, no problem.
Okay, Ms. Wesley.
Thanks, Mr. Casa. Mr. Schneider, maybe I missed it. The contract cost for, I think it was 2023 to 2024 was it 0.17?
2021 through 2024 is 52.7 cents.
Right, and then
the 24-25 is 17.5 cents per decatherm.
Okay, so my dumb question is, how the peat is that so much lower?
Well,
are you
because
that great? Huh? I'm sorry, go ahead.
Because of the quick increase in cost of natural gas, the providers in Pennsylvania, which provide natural gas to us, can pull the gas out cheaper and transport it to us cheaper than what we could get it from Henry Hub down in Louisiana.
Yeah.
And all the pricing is based on Henry Hub, so we're cheaper.
Okay.
That's
That's substantial, this reduction. And so when would we be able to look at, finalizing costs for 2025, 2026?
Well, this is not finalizing all costs. Please keep in mind the basis is just a portion of the total cost. 25, 26, we would have to wait another year to look at that. They would be willing to go out that 18 months, which was 6.5 cents, but they wouldn't be willing to go out much further because the market conditions are so volatile right now.
Right. Okay. All right. Thank you. It's great. It really is.
Yeah. Thanks for being so proactive, and this is common sense. So, yeah. All right. So we need to move. Do we need a motion to move this to action meeting?
Yes.
Okay. So we have a motion.
So moved.
All right. Here comes the rain. I'm sorry if it's loud here. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor of the natural gas basis contract being moved to full action meeting for board consideration, raise your hand or say aye. Aye. Any opposed? It's unanimous. We'll move that forward to the full board. Thank you, Mr. Schneider.
The last item.
So where are we at now?
We will be in informational items, number letter C, capital project update.
Okay.
So this year, we updated the 10-year capital plan. We modified some items to adjust costs, and also we added items of recent items that we needed to add to consider for capital projects. Also, we have a 5% inflationary increase for the 5 years of the 10-year plan, an 8% inflationary increase for years 5 to 10 over last year's years. On the chart, all the orange or peach colors are modified from the previous plan, and the yellow are items which were added to the plan this year. And this is the priority scoring. We also have the building level scoring, but this is a priority scoring. And as you can see, the high priority of all the plans are the high school transportation building at 4s and 3.8s. And obviously we are planning, going to start the master plan on that. And so hopefully we'll be moving forward into some sort of a design or consideration of a project in the future. The next level of priority are the 3.6. Now, just in the past 2 weeks, we have the first is bridle path and or replacers. Just 2 weeks, we lost 4 compressors on one of the bridle path chillers. We are recommending that the committee consider replacing the chillers and bridle path as we did at Gwinnett Square 2 years ago, or last summer, I'm sorry. And then Walton Farm replace those chillers also because of the same vintage. In addition, those 2 buildings, those chillers were designed to provide ice storage for air conditioning. At night, the chillers on off times, and then we would cool the building through that. Those systems have not functioned for years. The control systems failed. They were obsolete. Also, that we don't get the advantage of off-peak power any longer. PECO doesn't offer an off-peak rate. So financially, it didn't make any sense to run. And because systems behind that way, it's at times difficult on those real hot, humid days to control humidity in those buildings. We also have replacement of addition and installation of exhaust fan on the bridle path, Gwinnett Square and Farm. The system has what's called gravity reliefs, and we believe that installation of bubbles and exhaust fans on those buildings would in community and in the school. We would also look at the possibility of doing some roofing in the next year. Now, the difficulty with roofing at this point is a supply chain issue. I spoke with a number of professionals in the industry, and they were indicated that if we were to have a purchase order, we would be hard pressed to get by next August. Of insulation, is very hard to get right now. So we would like to possibly talk about planning some roof replacements, possibly some sections of the high school roof in need of replacement, not the full roof, just possibly the ESC's roof and Gwen Nor's. Those 3 are the highest priority at this point. So this is an updated plan with additional and revised items, and we can discuss any specific topics as you might see fit.
Thank you, Mr. Schneider. I see Ms. Wesley has her hand up.
Okay, Mr. Costa, that I didn't lower it from before, but I do have a question regarding the roof replacements, particularly the high school. And just Mr. Schneider, I guess my ask is that when that comes back to the committee for further discussion or a motion that's required, that I guess what I'm asking for is to understand what is happening with the roof in terms of, are there leaks? What's exactly happening physically to the roof that in those sections of the high school that are requiring them to be a higher priority than something else? I'd like to drill down, understand it a little bit more on a granular level. That would be my request.
Oh, absolutely. As the facilities, we have what we feel is priority areas at the high school. What we will do is bring in a professional architect to also review, and also a roofing consultant to take a look at it to confirm what we see, and all that information would be provided to facilities and operations prior to moving forward with any project.
Okay, so my other request would be, if it's appropriate and it doesn't cause disruption, that I participate in that walk down, particularly when the roofing expert is there, so I can see it firsthand, so I can come back to this committee and, you know, really be able to communicate it throughout the board if I could.
Absolutely.
I just like putting on my work boots, Mr. Schneider.
That's fine. Absolutely. Look
Thanks a
forward
lot. Appreciate it. Thank you.
And I appreciate the update and breaking some of this out for the priorities between the scores. You know, Mr. Scrocchi, is there anything that you can share with us from a high level about how this informs future budgeting or finance considerations?
Well, let me start with what's available right now. Typically, projects like this would be funded from our capital reserve fund. That's what the fund is there for. It's for building improvements, infrastructure upgrades, and the purchase of school buses. We have $2 million in that fund right now. And just last Thursday, the board approved a $3.5 million transfer from unspent money from the 2021 budget. So we will have $5.5 million in the capital reserve fund by the end of this week. So this is really our guide in planning for what is needed. And I think the committee will recall that just a couple of years ago, for the first time, we included a line item in the general fund budget where we do transfer money over from the general fund to the capital reserve each year. And this plan can help guide us with that amount that can be recommended in the general fund budget. So just a quick refresher, there's two ways money gets into the capital reserve fund. Number one is to budget for it in the general fund as part of the budget process, which we have now done for the last 2 years. And the second way is what I mentioned initially, that $3.5 million was unspent money from the 2021 fiscal year that'll now be transferred over. So this plan, of course, taking a look at the highest priority items, is really our roadmap for how we will plan on the funding, whether it be in the general fund as part of the budget or whether that's to transfer unspent money. This is our roadmap for the future to plan for these projects.
That's very helpful. Thank you, Mr. Scrocchi. I'm sure for the community as well as committee. Ms. Wesley.
Thanks again, Mr. Casas. So this more is after the community and also a reflection on the level of detail Mr. Schneider and his team goes to create this capital projects list. I use the term list, but it is a much more robust document that is based upon including technical experts in areas to determine what are the priorities. So it's more complex than what you see on here as a spreadsheet. And I think, unfortunately, there have been instances in the recent past where it's been looked at as a to-do list. And that is really a not correct description of this particular document. And I'd like to just get that across to the community, that it's thorough, it's robust, and it is accurate in terms of the prioritization, including the physical condition of things, as well as the safety concerns that the administration has communicated in this list as well. So thanks.
And some of the highest priority items, in order for us to start moving forward with some of these projects for summer of 2022, we will need approval from the board shortly, November or December, most likely, to approve the advertising for the bidding process so we can do some of these projects in the summer. And Mr. Schneider, I think you were anticipating the higher priority projects at Walton Farm and Bridle Path could be summer of 2022. The roofing projects might be a little bit later than that just because of supply issues, correct?
That is correct, Mr. Scrocchi. Yes. That is correct.
Details.
Yes.
And this is very helpful. We've come a long way in developing this. I'd also like to point out to the community that also underpinning this and reinforcing what Ms. Wesley had to say, there are individual independent objective assessments that have also been done on our facilities, which help to inform this, especially at those of our buildings which are deemed most in need and will likely need comprehensive renovations, such as the North Penn High School. Any other questions or comments from the committee? All right, seeing none. Thank you very much, Mr. Schneider and team. Thank you, Mr. Scrocky, for those insights. What other, are we left any other items on the checklist here on the agenda before we move to public comment or summary of items?
I believe we're completed everything, Mr. Casa.
All right, 8:17. We'll see where this takes us. Let's go through the summary of items recommended for action meeting, please, Mr. Schneider.
Yes, the summary of items would include the Crawford Stadium change order and the retroactive approval of the natural gas basis contract.
Squares with what we have. Thank you. With that, we'll move on to public comments. Ms. Fakish, I'll wait for you to give me the signal whether I'm reading the disclaimer or not.
Yes. There is a hand up.
All right. Thank you very much. I'm glad, and thank you to whoever has waited this long to speak. Individuals attending this meeting virtually and intending to speak to the committee should be aware that they are being recorded. In order to meet the requirements of Pennsylvania Sunshine Law, it's necessary to record the names of all citizens who speak to the committee during the meeting. To assure compliance with this requirement, it is essential that those planning to address the committee raise their hand electronically and state their name and township. Members of the audience are asked to limit their questions and comments to matters being discussed at tonight's meeting or matters that may come before the Facilities and Operations Committee. To allow time for all those who wish to speak to the committee, the chairperson may ask an individual to yield the microphone to the next speaker. This is in reference to Board Policy 903. Take it away, Ms. Fagish.
Our first audience of citizen is Mr. Lanier. Mr. Lanier, I'm going to allow you to talk, and then you may unmute your mic. Please state your name and address for the board.
Jason Lanier, Lansdale Borough. First, wanted to say that I had a real hard time hearing what Mr. Schneider was saying. I don't know if you guys are going to have a better recording that you can post online so you can get a better understanding of what he was saying, but I think everybody would agree it was cutting in and out far too often. It's bandwidth, storms ahead, up, whatever it was just really hard to understand. Second item, this isn't necessarily a complaint, it's sort of an FYI. I'm on a thread regarding, it has to do with a lot of people playing girls softball. Apparently they raised a bunch of money last year for a dugout, and they did a lot of legwork. They have a contractor who is going to do the work. They have materials that have been donated, the block, the concrete, whatever needs to be done. But apparently this contractor, I want to say Scott Builder, is getting a little pushback, and he's kind of running up a deadline against himself for himself. And I was hoping that somebody could reach out to the appropriate people on the parent committee with the softball team, or maybe the softball coach, I would imagine. But it's something that sounds like people are pretty frustrated about. Third, I wanted to ask about incorporating, I kind of look at it like that, incorporating cameras into the classroom. And I kind of look at it like, you go to a casino, there's cameras everywhere, and it's basically to catch the cheats and the liars and bad things that happen. And there was a lot of conversation. I know this isn't exactly on topic, but for instance, these privilege walks, you guys didn't say, you said it didn't happen, never happened. You refused to acknowledge it for months and months and months and months and months. And finally, at the last action committee, one of your student representatives got up and told you that it is happening, and you guys should be aware of this. It seems to me, if you weren't unaware, if you're not aware of it, that's a problem. And if you were aware of it, that's a problem. And parents don't want this happening, and the kids don't want this happening. So why is this happening? And I think a good solution, maybe put cameras in the classroom. And I don't know what the budget would be for that. I don't know, you know, the recording of what's going on in the classroom, or being able to stream it so the parents can see. But certainly, if it's anything that have been brought up a lot, you know, regarding critical race theory or these privilege walks or what have you, it might be a good thing to show everybody that it's not happening, and or if it is happening, maybe you can put an end to it. I would say put a nip in the bud, but clearly that's not the case. You guys knew about it, and and to that end, maybe there should be some resignations for either not knowing about it or for letting it happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lanier. Anyone else, Ms. Fakish?
Yes. Our next audience of citizens, Mr. Froelich. Mr. Froelich, when I mute your mic, please state your name and address for the board. Mr. Froelich, you need to unmute.
Is it working for me now?
Yes, you are live.
Thank you. Sorry about that. I just wanted to make reference to something that was discussed earlier this evening. It was in regards to site views for our wheelchair-bound disabled students in regards to the Crawford Stadium. Just going to read something to you guys. This is from the 9th Circuit United States Court of Appeals, the court case Daubert versus Lindsay Unified School District, where Lindsay High School offered bleacher seating within its football stadium. In this case, the primary concern with stadiums built prior to the 1992 ADA regulations being ratified. The relevant discussion from the case relating to our new stadium is related to new construction, is that the court ruled that any newly constructed or altered seating arrangement must directly comply with ADA design standards, regardless of any alternative seating arrangement. To accommodate this decision, there was a requirement to offer unobstructed views for disabled spectators, and that was decided by that court. If you go to the United States Department of Justice Civil Rights Division Disability Rights section, it states various items regarding wheelchair seating and things of that nature. And it says there, wheelchair seating locations must be provided in all areas, including skyboxes and specialty areas. Whenever more than 300 seats are provided, wheelchair seating locations must be provided in more than one location. This is known as dispersed seating. Wheelchair seating locations must be dispersed throughout all seating areas and provide a choice of admission prices or views comparable to those for all the general public. Wheelchair seating locations must provide lines of sight comparable to those provided to other spectators. In stadiums where spectators can be expected to stand during a show or event, sustainably all of the wheelchair seating locations must provide a line of sight over standing spectators and obstructions. A comparable line of sight, as illustrated, there's a figure that's on their website, allows a person using a wheelchair to see the playing surface between the heads and over the shoulders of people standing in a row immediately in front of or over the heads of the persons in a wheelchair. With this being said, I find it troubling that we have an ongoing issues with sight views for our students who require a wheelchair, when ADA compliance was one of the driving motivations in the planning and construction of Crawford Stadium. This should have been addressed in the planning stages, and a simple search of Google or other websites that give you visuals of other school district stadium designs provide a glimpse into many other methods that could have been implemented to ensure this wasn't an issue. There's options for certain types of stadium construction to use plexiglass, all sorts of other materials that could have made it so we didn't have this issue. This has nothing to do with the budgetary things that people bring up about the stadium or anything. This now has to do with I'm advocating for our wheelchair disabled students. This is something that should have been discussed prior to the stadium's construction, and according to the ADA, has to be rectified at some point. So that's something I'm putting out there, that no matter who is on the board after next Tuesday, somebody needs to address the line sites, because what I heard tonight was a lot of justification for why people can't see the field from a wheelchair. That is unacceptable according to the ADA's own website. This is an issue that absolutely has to be taken care of and should never have been an issue for our most needy people in the stands who want to participate in school spirit.
Thank you, Mr. Froelich. Next speaker, please, Ms. Fakish.
At this point, there are no other hands raised.
Okay, it's opportunity for other business. Any comments or questions of the committee or the administration?
Mr. Casa, this is Julianne.
Go ahead.
I just want to apologize to the committee for being late. I had the privilege of being a guest speaker in the adult parent ESL class that is being offered through our community education program at the ESC. It was a privilege to be part of that class and to talk about the role of the school board with those students. So I apologize for being late, but also want to give a shout out to Mrs. Murphy, the ESL teacher, and to the students who are attending that class, and wish to thank them for their interest and for their commitment to our community.
Thank you, Ms. Ramich. And I would like to take that opportunity to thank candidate Froelich for bringing up those issues and educating us. There are many other details, which I'm sure the administration will look into this as well. But I think it's a perfect example of why this engagement is so important and to hear from the community. I wish, honestly, Mr. Froelich, if you'd been coming to meetings just before the primary, you could have been a part of that conversation. We're here every month, every year, talking about this development. So thank you for bringing it up now, but this is why it's important for people that are on the board to be a part of this conversation with the community on an ongoing basis. So that's something that we'll certainly have our administration look into and the specific details. But I like you providing that example as to why it's so important to always be at board meetings, and as a community member, what can be added to that conversation when we pull on our expertise from across the community. As far as the softball issue, I know that the administration is actively working on that. I'm not aware of what chatter is in social media. However, I'm confident that the administration will connect, if they haven't already, with the appropriate stakeholders to make sure that we're having a conversation based on fact and we set that straight. I would hope from the administration that if any issues arise regarding those the softball field, you will bring that to this committee's attention, and I always appreciate your transparency when you do that. And as far as cameras in the classroom, I think we had an experiment with 1.5 years of that, and it's amazing what didn't come up, considering all of those classes and the hybrid learning and the model that we had. That's something you can continue to ask questions about, Mr. Lanier. We'll be happy to listen to you and be part of that exchange with the community as well. Any other last comments or points of clarification from the committee? Seeing none, before we adjourn, we'll go over when the next meeting date is. November 29th, 2021 at 7:00 p.m. in this virtual format. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
Okay,